Hey, welcome to this week's Client Attraction Clinic. Listen, this is the place where we challenge conventional thinking, cut through the noise, and have real conversations about business, money, marketing, and what it really takes to build a business with impact. Now, if you're tired of the surface level advice or recycled talking points and the same worn out scripts everybody else is repeating, then you're in the right place. My goal here is very, very simple: to help you think more clearly, make better decisions, and see opportunities other people miss so that you can begin to attract clients instead of chasing them down. So, whether you're here to grow your business, strengthen your financial future, or just start asking better questions, I'm glad you're here. Now, with that, let's get into it. Today, we're going to talk about the listing agent's real job. And it's not simply to put a home on the MLS. It's not about taking photos. It's not just writing remarks or putting a sign in the yard or just waiting for showings and hoping a buyer shows up. The listing agent's real job is to create competition, because competition is what gives the seller the leverage, and leverage is what often creates a better outcome. Now, let's be very clear here. The market always matters. Pricing matters, condition, location, timing, all that matters. You can't ignore those things. But within those realities, your job is simple: create as much qualified buyer demand as possible and structure the process so the seller has the strongest position available. That's the work. Too many agents use passive marketing. They put the home on MLS, they upload a few pictures, they write a description, maybe run a basic social media post, hold an open house, and then they sit and wait. That's exposure. But exposure alone is not strategy. Strategy is when the exposure is designed to create a specific result. So the question isn't, will people see the listing? Of course they will. The question is, will the right people see it at the right time, in the right way, with enough urgency to take action? You see, that's a better question. Competition doesn't happen by accident. It has to be engineered. It starts before the listing ever goes live. You need to understand the seller's goals. You need to understand the property, the buyer pool. You have to understand the likely objections. You need to understand the price strategy, the timing. Then, and only then, you build the launch process. Now, the launch should create attention. Now, that may include coming soon promotion, database outreach, buyer agent communication, social media, email, direct mail, open house promotions, neighborhood outreach, retargeting, and whatever else makes sense for the property and your market. But again, don't get lost in the tactics. The goal is not to do a bunch of marketing just so you can say you did it. The goal is very simple. It's to create buyer interest and seller leverage. That's your job. You see, that's why your open house strategy matters. An open house shouldn't just be a 2-hour event where you sit in the kitchen and you hope someone walks in. It should be part of the listing launch. It should be promoted. It should be positioned. It should create activity. It should create urgency. And above all, it should give you proof. Because when a seller sees real activity, confidence goes up. And when the market sees real activity, urgency goes up. Our typical open house traffic, depending on market size, is between 150 to 200 individual buying units. Now, you're probably asking, what in the heck is a buying unit? Well, if mom and dad and 2 kids come in, most agents count that as 4. We consider that one buying unit. Now, our record open house was 1,224 buying units in one weekend in 2024. We don't overinflate the traffic to sound good. Our job is to attract as many buying units as possible. Now, let's talk about offer strategy. If a buyer believes they're the only serious buyer, the buyer has all the leverage, don't they? They can take their time, negotiate harder, ask for more, make the seller feel uncertain. But when multiple buyers are interested, the leverage completely changes. The seller gets the options, the buyer has to make decisions, and the negotiations become very, very different. That's why competition matters. Your job is not only to find one buyer, your job is to create the conditions where the seller has the best chance of choosing from multiple qualified options. Now, can you guarantee that every home gets multiple offers? No, of course you can't. And you should never promise that. But you can have a process designed to maximize the chances of competition. You see, that's the difference between a promise and a strategy. A promise says, hey, I'll get you multiple offers. A strategy says, here's the process we'll use to create the highest level of qualified buyer activity so you have the strongest chance of getting the best terms and net result. You see, that's far more credible and it's more professional. Let me give you an example. 8 years ago, I created a listing process to ensure my team was able to control buyer attraction and, most importantly, institute maximum leverage to ensure our sellers receive the most amount of money for their home. Now, let's talk about proof. In the past, we've discussed having proof or delivering proof over promises. You see, if you want to win listings at a high level, you need to start documenting proof. Don't just tell sellers your marketing works, show them. If you had strong open house traffic, document it. If you generated high online views, document it. If you had a high number of saves, document it. If you received multiple offers, document them. If you created a strong result compared to a nearby listing, document it. You see, these become your future listing presentation assets. Now, remember our record open house, 1,224 buying units? Well, I have agents call me out all the time and telling me that, that's BS. Well, guess what? I have video proof. We recorded video and took pictures throughout the entire day. You see, saying something doesn't make it true. Proving it does. Now, why do I bring that up here? Because most agents are terrible at collecting proof. They do the work, they get the result, they close the transaction, and they move on. That's a huge, huge mistake. Every successful listing should become a case study. Not because you need to brag, because future sellers need evidence. Sellers don't want vague promises. They want confidence. So if your process created 200 open house visitors, record the crowd. If your marketing generated strong online activity, screenshot the data. If the home sold faster or stronger than a comparable listing, capture the comparison. If the seller was thrilled, ask for a testimonial. That's how you turn one result into future trust. Now, here's the mindset I want you to adopt. Don't be a listing placer. Be a demand creator. A listing placer simply puts the home online and hopes. A demand creator builds the strategy, promotes the launch, activates the market, captures proof, and helps the seller make informed decisions. That's the difference. So, here's your action step. Create a 10-day listing launch plan. Start with the day the listing goes live. Then work backward. What needs to happen before that? What content needs to be created? What photos, video, copy, ads, email, signs, postcards, and buyer outreach need to be ready? How will you promote the open house? How will you communicate with the seller? How are you going to capture leads? How will you document the proof? See, don't make it complicated. Just make it clear. Because if your listing launch is random, your results probably will be random too. But if your listing launch is strategic, you give the seller a better chance of creating the competition that they need. And if you want to take this deeper, I've written a new book that listeners can download for free. The title of the book is The Boss, an AI machine that can run any real estate business while the agent is out selling homes. Now, who should consider even reading that book? Any agent that finds their marketing stops when they get busy, their database sits untouched, and follow-up depends on their memory. This guide shows how AI can keep the business building work moving behind the scenes. Download it and see how experienced agents are using the AI behind the scenes to earn more while working less. You can grab your copy at www.theaibossblueprint.com. That's www.theaibossblueprint.com. With that, I'll sign off for the week. Go out and start building your machine, and we'll talk to you next week.